Alrighty, so the second part of Module 3 is going to give you a little information that you may be aware of for one of the lifestyle medicine topics in particular. I thought it's a little bonus topic for you. This is something that I tried to incorporate into your assignment this week to do a little experiment for yourself on this. And this was really about one of the particular aspects of the positive things that exercise can do for your brain. And so a lot of this for me started was when I read this book called Spark. And I would encourage all of you to read it. It's a fabulous read. It doesn't take that long. It's not entirely scientific, although it is based on science, and written by a psychiatrist. And he explains many of the ways he uses exercise for the patients that he sees in their various disorders, psychiatric, psychological disorders. It's wonderful. I would encourage it for everyone. You can easily find it on Amazon. But they also have a website, so you can go to sparkinglife.org also and get some information. I wanted to, though, specifically, well, let me cover this next slide first, just as a broad overview for some of the advantages that exercise have been shown to do for the brain. It improves alertness and attention and mood and motivation. Prepares and encourages nerve cells to bind to one another. And then it spurs the development of new nerve cells. And so there's a lot of research about what exercise can do in the brain, all the positive effects that it can do. Now, really the next step is, how does that affect us in ways that make our lives better? One of the things that I thought was particularly interesting, and I came across it in Spark, the book, when I read it for the first time, is what it actually does for academic performance. So, my question for you, can exercise improve concentration? And there's quite a bit of information about this in research. Most of the research so far has been done on children and adolescents, although I think we're starting to see more on especially the aging population, which is important for us, but also the middle-aged population too, so middle-aged adults. A couple of the things that I wanted to point out just out of evidence for this is pointed out in Rady's book on Spark, is a PE program that they did in Naperville, Illinois. And it wasn't just your normal PE program, it was where the students actually exercised. So they would have, once a week, students would run a mile as part of how they started this, but they were not awarded or graded based on how fast they went, but more so on participation in it and the level of participation, meaning everybody wore a heart rate monitor. They needed to maintain between 80 and 90% of their maximum heart rate, and then were graded based on the period of time that they maintained that heart rate. So it was really about effort. It didn't matter if you ran a 6-minute mile, 8-minute mile, 12-minute mile. If you were within that heart rate range, it showed your effort. And so that's how they were graded. And the interesting thing about it was that they positioned this as a 0-hour PE course before the school even started. So and then they would front load all the difficult courses for these students on the front end of their day. And what they found out is, so the math and science courses, that they were scoring much higher than what they had previously, and much higher than what the norm was in the U.S. And what they believe was happening was that it improved concentration for these students. And so what is now being shown through some research is that improved concentration, similar to how we like to use certain medications for that, can be replicated, in fact, by using exercise. I'm going to show you an example of that in a little bit. So what Naperville has been able to show through their specifically targeted PE, where they may play games in there, but it's purposeful games that keep people moving all the time, not a game where you would stand around, for instance, but constantly moving. And we're able to show that directly correlated to academic performance and improved student behavior. There's a meta-analysis that was published also, as I point out here, in 2003. This, and if you're not familiar with what a meta-analysis is, it's where researchers will gather studies, all the studies that were published in a certain on a certain topic, combine all of the data together, and then rerun the statistics to see if, looking at all of this data, not just individual small studies, but all of it combined, showed something. And so this, in fact, was done on the relationship between physical activity and cognition, and specifically in children. There were 44 studies that were combined for this, and in fact they showed a statistically significant improvement in cognitive function when students exercised. And the interesting part about this, now the Naperville study used vigorous exercise, 80 to 90% of maximum heart rate. And this study, the meta-analysis anyway, showed that irrespective of intensity, that cognitive improvements were still shown. And it was consistent, where meaning that many of the studies showed improvement, not just a few that were very strong studies, but many of the studies showed improvement. And one of the more interesting pieces about it was that for children who were developmentally disabled mentally, they also showed that they had the same improvement in cognitive function. So very interesting study, and there's lots of research about this, but I'm just pointing out one, and a meta-analysis is a good way to explain it to you. And then lastly, the one area I wanted to point out was in 2012 I published a paper that looked at a comparison between the pharmacology of a medication, or actually a class of medications that we use for attention deficit or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, versus the physiology of what exercise would do. So it's my pharmacology versus sort of physiology paper. So looking specifically at a drug class that Ritalin is in. It's a drug that most people are familiar with to use for ADHD. And so here's the deal. So you could, if you do not have ADHD and you took Ritalin, you would improve your concentration. You don't actually have to have ADHD to have the drug work for you. It will work on folks who do not have ADHD and allow you to focus and concentrate better. And so that sets the tone for this. What I found out in this small research project was that the pharmacology of Ritalin and how that drug works to improve concentration is in fact the same as the physiology of what exercise does, also to improve concentration. And it really gets down to its effect on certain neurotransmitters, dopamine and norepinephrine. Not important for you to know those things, of course, but just the same neurotransmitter effect that controls our cognition, our ability to concentrate, our ability to reason and to think, as well as our ability to control our emotions. Those things that we sometimes use a drug like Ritalin for. In fact, exercise does the same thing. It's remarkable. There are of course, some differences in how long it lasts. But exercise definitely has some advantages over Ritalin, not to mention the side effect business that you get from a medication, but it also has some motor control improvements also that you don't get from ADHD medications like Ritalin. But the one key point of it is that it doesn't last as long. So where a Ritalin or a drug like Ritalin may last 3 to 5 hours, or if you take a long-acting, up to 12 hours, exercise has been shown, just this anecdotally, we're missing a lot of research in this, to last just up to 90 minutes or so. So here's what I encourage all of my students to do, and this is getting to the point of actually the reason why I wanted to talk with you about this, because just beginning the start of this program, this is good technique for you to hopefully improve or a tool to use for academic performance. And that exercising prior to doing a large project or an exam, for instance, is a very good idea. It's one of those things that For instance, I have a couple of kids in high school, and when they take big exams, especially things like ACT, they I have them where they're, or I encourage them, and they both do it. I have one that's a senior now and a junior. So the senior's been through the ACT business, and the junior's just getting into it now. But both of them use this where they bring their clothes. They're both runners anyway, so they don't have an issue with doing this and being embarrassed. But they take their running shoes with them, and they actually exercise before the test, and then during a break in between, they'll go to the gym at the school. They take it and exercise in between, and it really helps improve their concentration and their cognitive function. I also encourage our pharmacy students before they take their board exams or major exams to do this too. Nobody cares if you show up sweaty. That's what I always tell them. So go do your some exercise for 15, 20, 30 minutes or so, and then go in and sit for your exam or anything that you need to be concentrating on. So you have an assignment that's similar to this too, and this is just very very experimental for you to see if this works. And you can find, if you want to get crazy or get creative and do a different way of an additional way of seeing if this improves your concentration. But what I suggested in the assignment was to go read part of your book, one of the books for the course, and then go out and exercise and come back and read some more of that and see if your exercise improves. Now, the difference between the difference in intensity, I guess some folks think it matters, and that it's vigorous intensity. We know vigorous intensity exercise works for this, and so that would be maybe go out and jogging or walking very briskly, depending on what your fitness level is. Don't overdo it, and other folks think just actually moving helps, and so I think either one is going to work. For students who are able to, I encourage vigorous type activity, because I'm confident that works to improve cognitive function and concentration. And so there you go. That's the very brief. I put some of the links on here for you if you wanted to find out more information about it. I would encourage you to do so. But so if you have any questions, let me know. It's a very exciting topic, and I hope you find it useful for you as a tool. All right, so until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.